Aloha, this is Jason Schwartz, and we're at the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. Today is January 8th, but it is our first show of the year because we were gifted with Monday was Christmas and Monday was New Year. And so that meant that I didn't get to come in and say Merry Christmas or Happy New Year. So we did a show and it was running for 3 weeks. And now we're back here in 2024. So just remember, we're on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. Simulcast on Akaku Maui Community Media, Channel 55 on cable. And at MauiNeutralZone.com, you will see all of our shows. You can go back and look into our library. I have someone in the studio that was here decades ago at Akaku and actually had his own show here on Akaku, which he'll tell you about in a few minutes. His name is David Gallagher, and some people say, is he still alive? There he is. And other people say, oh yeah, David Gallagher, I know him, I see him every weekend. So I just want to introduce him to Maui audiences. He's actually got I want to say about, I don't know about, that sounds like a word, with hiccups.
The worst hiccups in the world.
Is that what that is?
I have actually gone to the ER because my hiccups were so bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did they tell you it was from?
Breathing.
Okay.
As soon as you stop breathing for 10 to 15 minutes, guaranteed you'll cure your hiccups. However, if you hold your breath for 10 to 15 minutes, there will be sacrifices.
Like your life.
Yeah.
David is sometimes, I guess the word is, he's holding his breath. I really know this is real, this hiccup thing.
Oh.
So we'll see if it continues or not. But if you do it to the right beat, you could actually be a karaoke machine or a... David,
that wasn't it.
He has quite a history, which I'm sure he'll tell you some about. But you know that I have Scott Bush now, who was here for a few weeks, and we're going to have him back. I have what I call co-hosts. And sometimes they're going to be in the studio, and sometimes they're going to be in the field, and sometimes they're going to be calling in from the field. Because remember, we are a call-in talk show. And if you're watching on TV, you know 808-873-3435 is our call-in number. 808-873-3435. So when we're talking and you want to call in, if I see or hear that there's a call coming in, I will pick it up and you'll be included in conversation. Now, we're a little different in that we're going to be call-in, call-out talk show, meaning this year we're going to be stressing the fact that we are interactive. We're going to have some guests in the studio, but we're going to bring in subjects and things from outside, and also our audience will be driving the conversation and helping us steer through. To say unusual times is not even fair.
These are unusual times. There was a saying at one time, it's probably gone now, which is when instead of like cussing somebody out, you would be in a very polite way. You would say, well, bless your little pea-picking heart. Or, may you live in interesting times.
Oh, God, well.
Remember, ever hear that one?
I haven't heard the interesting times of flicking.
Well, we're still here, and times are, and I guess you could say they're interesting. Yeah, and they require a lot of humor, a great deal of sense of humor.
Well, which is why, when you need dry humor or wet humor, you do both kinds.
Depends on what I've had. If I had Mexican food, it's wet. It's wet food usually. It's wet humor usually. Yeah.
Well, David is a refugee from the late night talk show. Do we have a circuit here? We don't even have a circuit. We're only one station on Maui, right? So you weren't part of the circuit. You were part of the anchor on the late night talk show. When was it? Was
produced by Sue Bell, and it was called Late Night Maui.
I remember, and
I worked in the daytime in ocean safety, and at night I'd come down here and we'd do these little shows They liked me because I knew everybody that I interviewed, I had history with because I've lived here for so long. So I knew their kids, or we once had Barry Rivers come in, and I said, I remember the day I met you, and, that kind of dialogue. And the great thing about living on the island is if you stay open, you get to meet a lot of really great, interesting people that normally on a small island like this you wouldn't necessarily, run into. So I think Maui has such an incredible history of so many things that have happened in such a small place that, wow.
Well, we've attracted some people from all over the world. Most people that I know that came here on a vacation.
Right.
Or they stopped here on the way back from the military.
Right.
That's what I hear. Yeah, I came here in World War II, and we stopped off, and I had a day, and I went over to Maui, and I really liked it. And 20 years later, I said, I think I'd like to go to Maui. Or some people came early, but that's how it happened. And then people come with a wing and a prayer, some people, and start from wherever they are, and they get to meet an interesting group along the way.
Which keeps them here sometimes. I've many times heard someone say, I just came here on vacation and decided to stay. Yeah,
and they decided to stay because they spent their last nickel coming here on vacation. And they had to get a job, and they became a whatever. Maui has people that are, I call them, super overqualified. You have a rocket scientist who's now a busboy at Chemo's.
Right.
No longer Chemo's.
No longer Chemo's.
When our commercial came on earlier and it said Lahaina, I thought, wow, how did they find that person?
It's not Lahaina any more than it's Kihale or Pairia. It's not Pairia, it's Paia. Yeah. It's not Makawawi. Makawawi. Oh, I've heard them all. I've heard everything, including on the beach, someone saying, "What's the elevation here?" And I'm looking out. What's the elevation here? Yeah. And I go, well, let's see. Can you see? Can you see the sea? If you can see the sea, then the elevation is 0, like your IQ.
Someone asked that?
Oh yeah. My favorite answer is, "What island are we on?" And I say, "Oh, you're in Japan." Harimashita. Sarcasm.
Well, what as I'm sitting here, often I watch and guests are far away from the microphone. This guy now has to get on. He gets right there to the microphone. Did you notice the hiccups are gone?
Yeah. That's a professional. Your engineer gave me some magic water in a Dixie cup. And I don't know, whenever it's showtime, whatever my problems are, when it's time to put out, hey, I put out like Mae West,
Uh-oh. Some of you youngsters don't know that.
No, Mae West is.
You maybe not even know who Mae West is. It's interesting. Like we just heard, 48 years ago today, Peter Frampton Comes Alive album came out. And I think to myself, wow, Peter Frampton. Now we see Peter Frampton up on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we get to hear him doing things live with his kid, and he's doing music now all over the world. 48 years ago that album came out. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, I really like Peter Frampton.
That makes us old, by the way.
No. What makes us old is your plumbing. Think about it. Everything, when you're young, your plumbing works great. But as you get older, even though you become wiser and, of course, way more handsome, your plumbing doesn't work as well. And instead of your hair growing out of your eyebrows, like old men are famous for growing hair out of their eyebrows, I'm not getting old. I barely even have eyebrows. I have no hair on top of my head. This whole getting old stuff is for the birds. Only place I can grow hair is in my ears. What use does it have? I mean, God is obviously a woman, because only a woman could be that cruel to make men get old and have hair grow out of nowhere except for their nose and their ears.
Well, God might well be a woman.
Of course it's a woman.
Well, of course it's a woman.
Of course it's a woman.
So let me ask you a question, because you're sitting here with me, and I remember when I met you.
Yeah.
It was long ago.
Wow.
And you reminded me. I have a friend named Lono who lives on Molokai, who everyone here in Maui must know was Lono from Maui.
Right.
And he was a lifeguard. And
a great musician.
And a great musician. And way back when, there were very few musicians here who let me up on stage with them because they didn't know who I was, but Lono did. And over time, I ended up doing his taxes. Lenny Castellanos, who we know plays bass with Mick Fleetwood. No more Fleetwoods here. We'll see where that goes. But Lenny and his wife, John Woodhouse from the Maui News, told me that I should call Heather Castellanos because I wanted to form something to be that would get all the musicians known. They were like all over, but no one knew who they were, where they were, how do you find them, what's going on. This was obviously pre-internet.
Pre-Facebook, pre-internet.
Back when you had to actually put out a newspaper or have something on a bulletin board.
But we used coconut wireless before all that.
Well, but there weren't enough places or people to make it important to have that much communication because there were only a few places to go to. We were all coconuts then.
We had plenty of coconuts, but not a lot of places.
And there was this deep sigh in everyone. Well, there's got to be more places for musicians to play. I remember seeing Willie Kay playing at 505 Front Street.
Yeah.
May it rest in peace. And, I say that with honor. But, Lahaina was such an important part of my life when I was getting started here. And it's integrated into everything. Some people think, there's a fire zone, and not fire zone. We're all affected by it. And yes, the people in Lahaina lost all their possessions, and many of them lost their lives, and they lost where they live. But this has been an islands-wide issue, and our economy is upside down. The thing about this that always touches my heart in a crazy way is there are lots of homeless people and lots of people struggling here that weren't in fire zone. And yeah, I appreciate that the people in the fire need to get help, but just like today's paper, yeah, we got 600. We've encouraged people that have short-term rentals to turn them into long-term rentals for 18 months so that we can house the people that were lost in the fire so we can get them out of the hotels so we can get the hotels back because we're paying $250 to $450, $550 a night for those accommodations. That's coming out of money from
taxpayers.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're trying to, but that also means that all the other people that aren't from the fire are still
homeless.
I live in a senior center, and the guy next to me, quote, was smoking, and they caught him, and they made a big deal, and he was difficult, and so they're trying to throw him out. But he has challenges.
What was he smoking?
Just regular cigarettes.
Tobacco. He was smoking tobacco, and they wanted to throw him out.
No, but that's a federal law that on property that is managed by the federal government or as HUD supplement that you can't smoke at all. And
really?
And, yeah. So anyway, the bottom line here was he hasn't been able to move out because there's nowhere to move him to. So now we have a fire and the fire victims, 12,000 people. Every time I see the numbers, they're a little different. There's 2,500 still in the hotel and whatever is going on. We've desperately tried to catch up on a housing building plan that, again, over the last 2 decades, kept getting pushed. Can you believe that? Over 2 decades, pushing back to taking the moves to get the housing because of difficulties. Please, David, jump in.
What I've always, and I don't have it. I hate to talk when I really don't know, and I'm ignorant of this, and a lot of folks are kind of wondering about certain things. But from what I've learned, long time ago when we had Linda Lingle as our mayor. Now I could be inaccurate, but I believe there was a government an opportunity through a grant to put all of our utilities underground.
No.
And there was a decision. Now, I'm saying I don't want to get something.
No, that's all right. I'm listening.
Well, I think that we at one time, many years ago, and Mayor Lingle decided that it was more important to have swimming pools for the community, which at that time it was important to have swimming pools for the community because it directed a lot of kids in our youth that didn't have nothing else to do to learn how to swim and sports and all these. It created a lot of good things. However, that funding, looking back on it now, I think maybe that funding should have gone towards putting underground utilities in places that were very dangerous, such as Lahaina. You notice the fields were never taken care of. It was never mowed down. You had all this fuel. You had a long, hot summer fuel, and then you had
You're talking about now.
I'm talking about, what has happened? What if all those utilities had been underground?
Well, I wonder where that would... I guess that would be a change in the law that would make it important for developers putting it in. But you're saying that they wanted to change things that were already existing. Because, again, Scott, who you haven't yet met, Scott Bushnell, was a lifeguard, and here when Pioneer Mill owned, and the whole thing was owned and managed by a sugarcane company.
Right.
And they watched that land. They managed that open area you spoke about.
And they didn't manage it well.
Growth happened because no one put into place a law to bury the utilities. That, to me, that's what happened. They didn't have ownership of the land the way it was before. It wasn't being managed, and no law was in place to bury the utilities. In fact, when I first got here, Maui Meadows was like very, very sparse there in Kihei.
It was Kiabi. It was,
and I wondered, this was the perfect time to put these things in.
Right.
And I keep saying, well, maybe not, because there's no central developer now, and to ask homeowners to come up with the cost, and I'm with the money. So I like to blame mayors for a lot of stuff. I mean,
I'm not blaming. I'm not blaming. I'm just saying, and I'm asking the question. Really,
that people are so afraid to not have the votes they need to get in office,
right,
or to get back in office, that they don't make bold steps that are as progressive as one could. And like in our present, again, I don't know the facts, but when I met Josh Green, our governor, and talked with him, I felt like we are finally on the doorstep of having someone who really is a strong environmentalist and a really available... What was that?
That was me hanging myself. I was miming what it is to take a rope around my neck and pull the cord and just hang myself. That's my way of saying, are you kidding me?
No, I mean...
Really? You really believe that?
I was sitting at a meeting in Haiku, Haiku Community Association meeting, and there across from me is a guy, a pleasant guy, never met him before, with another guy sitting with him, and we got in conversation. And who was this guy? This guy was the one organizing the campaign for this guy, who was a doctor from the Big Island. And when I got and sat with them, I felt a really personable guy, and where we were really agreeing on so many things. I thought, wow, I like this guy.
Do you know one of the great talents? I'm not putting any politician or leader down per se, but one of the great talents that any politician / communicator is able to do is to almost read your mind and know what it is you like and what you agree on and what you believe in, even if you haven't really spoken that much. They can tap into that. It's like the coconut wireless. They can tap into what your values are and talk to you as if they're right in line with your values. But I'm going to tell you something, and you can tell by their actions, most of your politicians, they just want power and they just want money.
Well, I used to think that until I decided to run. And once I decided to run and get up close and personal, I didn't have those kind of values. I ran because I really cared and I wanted to share my ideas. And I was listening to the people that were running with me that, like, again, you thought were mind readers, but but their ideas weren't as progressive. And I thought, man, this is going to be such an easy cakewalk for me because these guys, I don't want to say damn fools. I guess I can say damn on the radio.
Dingleberries. How about dingleberries?
But then I watched them elect these people and elect them again and elect them again. And they, let's defer that. Oh, that's a tough decision. Well, I don't think we should put that one in committee. I think we should wait. And years kept going by. I ran a few times, and then I said,
I vote for you.
I'm going to do TV shows, and I'm going to talk about values. And that's how this show actually came about. Was I was going to interview politicians, but then I'd have to do everybody in the race.
Why? Why would you have to interview everybody?
Because on radio you have to do equal time.
Equal time?
Because the FCC requires that if you give one candidate 18 minutes, you have to give every candidate in that race. And so on a public access station, if I were to do it, it wouldn't be only to me. It's the whole station would suddenly be bound to give equal time to everyone that I interviewed. So I couldn't do
Forget about it.
When I was doing them for television only. But once I decided, so this radio show developed talking about values. And so I talk about all kinds of subjects. But again, and bring people on sometimes that were, talking about these subjects, but they weren't running for office at the time.
And that may sometimes makes them a little bit more honest about where their opinions are when they're not running for office.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
And so and if you'll look back, that's the reason we keep our archives at MauiNeutralZone.com. You will see we even have a search bar there. We got 1,000 shows. So you can go back and look at interviews, including interviews that I did with politicians over the years. You'll see, one of my favorites was Mike Molina with hair, and then Mike Molina without hair. Like you said, as people get older, Mike Molina was a good guy, and he still is a good guy.
He still is a good guy.
Right. And he was one of the few that I can see in my experience that I saw stand up to things that the community actually embraced. And I don't like to pick on people. Like right now we have people in office and their father or mother, or not necessarily, are in construction. And
and they get the contract.
Stamp.
Yeah.
No.
Because you know what? Nepotism, and we're seeing it here on the county of Maui and all over in many, many places. But when you hire people that aren't qualified, but they have the right last name, we call that nepotism.
Well, I think nepotism of that is happening now.
Nepotism leads to something that rhymes with nepotism. Ineptness. Okay, it doesn't completely rhyme, but ineptness and nepotism, they go hand in hand.
It's like those word jumbles. Do all those letters go in? I don't know.
Okay, nepotism and ineptness, they sort of rhyme, but not completely.
No, but if you look at those two, and I bet if you try it, you go, oh, look at that. They used the same letters. They just jumbled a little bit.
They just jumbled it between ineptness and nepotism.
No, but not always inept. But
not always.
But bottom line is, I hear what you say. It's difficult to think that there is no nepotism going on when someone's in the same industry. But they're not the ones that do the approval. See, that's what's so interesting. Again, when we get into micro managing, we sometimes see, we the public like to think, oh, that guy on council, his father, his brother is in construction, and so he's going to get the job. But then who does the calculating? It may not be him, and we may just be pulling our old fantasies. Like now, dare I say it? Donald Trump. I said it.
Boo.
Donald Trump says things, and actually, when you dig down, you don't have to dig too deep with him. He's a surface guy who knows how to say, "Oh, you don't like white people? Ah, you don't like black people? Ah, you don't like abortion? You do like abortion. What do you like? That's me. I'm that guy."
I'm that guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole separate show. You know, we've not that it matters, but I have a.
Did you know that Donald Trump was, before he became all these other things, was actually the weatherman? He came up with a great solution to how do you divert hurricanes. You drop a nuclear weapon on the hurricane, and this stops the hurricane from coming. Let's vote for someone that has good ideas like that.
Trump?
You bet. He says a lot of clever things.
So that one was really clever.
Oh, clever stuff. Very clever guy.
I'm here on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui, and Akakuaguni TV with David Gallagher. You can spell that name Gallagher.
Uh-oh.
And is there an email or some way people can get in touch with you if they want to?
Yes, there is, but nobody would want to, so I'm not going to.
Well, then, if you can put it through me, unless you want to.
There you go.
Is that what you'd prefer?
Yeah, I'll just come
At
on.
this point?
I'll just do these, and I will never come. I'll never show up with the hiccups again. It took certain.
Well, and we're going to be talking with people, and you'll be out there in the field, and I'll say, call in and say, "Hi, this is David Gallagher. I am here at blah, blah, blah. You have a guest there. Let me ask you this question, guest." See, I really perceive you as interactive. I want our public to really get that we have people that are co-hosts that also have subjects that they're going to be bringing in and bringing to our show.
And I appreciate this because I have a lot of subjects, but I'm not very technical. For instance, I can't even, these bells that you have, what do you call these?
Bells.
I can't even get a bell to work. Look, see, anyone else hits this thing, it rings. But I pick the thing up and I just do this. Nothing. I'm technically very inept.
Well, I'll watch.
Whoa.
Well, you saw the secret there, right?
Yeah, it was. You don't hold it.
See,
I hold on to everything.
You do, huh?
It comes from poverty. Example, when I came to this island in 1973, and I wouldn't take food stamps, but I had a spear gun. And so back then, fish.
You weren't holding people up with a spear gun.
No, I was catching fish and eating them. And it was good. And I discovered 1973, living out in the bush in McKenna, spearfishing. It was not great, but it was a good beginning. I was homeless, but I was happy, and having a spear gun instead of food stamps. Of course, back in the day, before they put all the golf courses in, we had very healthy reefs with plenty of fish.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Where'd the fish go?
In '88.
Okay.
And I also remember I had a girlfriend, and she liked shells, so we would walk along the beach in Oluwalu. Now, we've heard of Oluwalu here recently.
Yeah.
And there were, not only were there shells, there were whole shells. So if I saw one that was broken or chipped in something, throw it back.
Right.
There's plenty of shells in abundance. Now, I don't see almost any shells.
Things have changed. Of course, it's gotten hotter. The water's gotten a lot hotter. Oh, yeah. The coral reefs have died out. But even before that happened, they were starting to build a lot of golf courses here on Maui. And all of that runoff from the golf courses, all the runoff from all these homes that were being built right on the ocean, all of these nitrates went into the water and messed the ocean up. There were algae blooms that were caused because of all these excessive nitrates that were in the water, which totally strangulated a lot of your coral, blocked out the sun from the coral, and so when the coral reefs break down, then we lose everything else. We lose the fishing.
Well, that's a while ago, and those were pretty painful lessons for those of us that were here that put pieces together. In 1992, I was part of the Integrated Resource Planning Advisory Board at Maui Electric. And so I had the good fortune to go through all the different technologies before they were fashionable. Geothermal and wind and solar. And I remember clearly that we had lessons we learned then that kind of were going to shape the 20-year energy future of our island. And then it's just like many advisory boards. They have no power to implement. No. They have power to advise. Right. And not always do they connect.
Right. Only your legislators have the power to legislate. Only your legislators, the people that you vote into office, have the power and authority to establish laws. But they were established. Hopefully, they're established upon intelligent cognitive thinking and reasoning. We did a show here many decades ago. It was called Building a Better Community with Alan Arakawa when Alan wanted to become a mayor. And I'm going to edit this.
This was a while ago.
It was a while ago. I had said, I'd envisioned, a few of us were starting to see, well, the sugar cane's not going to always be here. I didn't want that to happen. I really loved the sugar cane. I loved the fire and the smoke of the sugar cane. I loved everything about the sugar cane. But not exactly. Not I see you hanging yourself over there like I did earlier. Yeah. And so my suggestion was, well, let's do what they did in Ukraine and Chernobyl after the Chernobyl nuclear facility went off and radiated all the soil and made the soil in Ukraine absolutely unusable. And so what they did was they planted hemp, a lot of hemp. Back then. And when they planted the hemp, this hemp deradiated the soil. It healed and it cured the soil. Now, I had strongly suggested this, and we had Dennis Marino from HANA out talking about all the known products that if we were to grow industrial hemp, the extra jobs that it would have created. Hemp doesn't need water like sugarcane, doesn't need pesticides, doesn't need all of these things, and will heal the soil.
When marijuana and hemp, its sister, they're all the same base. Right?
No, they're not. Not at all. Well, they're the same plant.
All of it was considered illegal. So just saying the word marijuana, and someone would be circling your house looking to see if they could arrest you.
It's funny, because in the World War II,
we are in a new world now.
We lost our access to Manila hemp when the Philippines was overthrown by the Japanese. And so the federal government said to every farmer in the United States, they weren't worried about somebody getting high on Pakalolo. No, they were telling every farmer they've got to grow a certain amount of hemp for the war effort. And that hemp was used to replace the Manila hemp line, and that was used on all your vessels, on all your planes, and everything. And it was the farmers that made that great contribution of growing hemp. Hemp has so many great uses, and it's not being used because nobody really looks at it. Look at the history of what happened to Chernobyl and how they healed the land. In the state of Hawaii, what is the motto in the state of Hawaii is the perpetuation, taking care of the land perpetuates the righteousness in the people of the state of Hawaii. But when it comes down to doing it, they don't. They don't follow science. They don't follow science. And that's the problem with what's keeps happening over and over and over is nobody is either they're educated in some kind of filibustering, but they're not educated in the topic that they are legislating over. And that's the problem that we're in now.
Well, it's an interesting opinion. I mean, some people might say to you, well, where do you say that that's the problem? That's a good opinion. But then we have public testimony. The thing that I've seen about public testimony recently is that the public testimony that comes with writings that go with it, many of these people have tried to put in writing to the group of people that these are some solutions. And then they have public testimony, and we hear more people talking, but again, they're not being tied to, and none of the council people say, well, we got this report from you that said this and this and this. So their questions back oftentimes aren't connected to the papers that many of these people have submitted. And when asked, did any of you read that thing that I sent? And you get few, if no hands, and they say, well, it was our people that are our support team that might have read it. But again, there was no connection. So the public speaks, and now we all hear it like it's some new thing when it was already presented and not being digested. You called it something different earlier, but it's the fact, I think, that people are overwhelmed in these jobs, that they are not.
They're not qualified.
Well, because who is qualified? They keep inheriting things. They keep inheriting problems from the past regimes of things that have been put on the back burner. Yep. Then they become fiery, difficult issues.
A grease fire.
Well, I don't think we can kind of get away with not talking about this recent toxic, hazardous material.
Putting all this toxic material in Olowalu.
That came out of Lahaina on the surface levels that are toxic and dangerous, that are being put temporarily in Olowalu. And then the mayor decided that would be temporary, but after all the testimony, after hearing how bad it was, instead of stopping it, and again, he may have reasons, he's just not sharing it in a way, but they started moving the soil before the public testimony, before any decisions were made, because those decisions were already made.
That's right. Those decisions were already made. But why don't you guys come up here and drive over here and spend 2 hours listening to us talk, and then we'll let you say something, and we'll pretend as if we think what you're saying is really interesting, and then we're just going to go do whatever the hell we want to do.
Well, again, by the nature of how you're putting it out, you're very accusatory. Notice, I try not to be accusatory. I'm just basically saying, leaving the possibility that they need to kind of be made aware they have to do things differently. Yours sounds like it was sinister, and some of it may be. I'm not denying that.
You're more diplomatic than I. I just say it like I see it. The way I see it is the way a lot of people see it.
Yeah.
They've lived here for half a century. We've seen this happening for years and decades, and it's just unbelievable how everything seems to be getting mismanaged.
Well, I think mismanagement, I sound like I'm defending someone, but when you try to handle problems now that you should have handled way back when, but you didn't have the money then, and now it's even worse, because now with inflation and things are so much more expensive. So how do you take $1 and you have needs of $8, and you've got to figure out how are we going to spend that $1 and not piss off, that's again, I'm not using words that we can't say, but annoy all the people that have real needs. That's a real talent.
That's huge.
And I don't really know if it can be solved, except when, this is my hit, that the people in the private sector who could pick up these things as investments, because nothing's done without a profit. We know that people will get paid and be paid with a profit, but many of these things could have been handled by looking over the horizon long ago and getting out there more aggressively and encouraging private sector involvement. You hear about this stuff sometimes, public-private partnerships. I think much of that needs to go on, and even more now than ever, because the government is getting money from the people and then spending it on things we need, but there's not enough money. And so the only way to break that cycle is involve private people and private companies that make money. I don't want to deny them profit, but I think that we need to much more strongly encourage private sector involvement and investment in things that the public needs. Give them incentives that will encourage that. I mean, here right now, I mean, talk about a juggle. You've got a state, and you now have 12,000 people that no longer have houses, and you're going to put them in hotels. When you put them in hotels at some premium rate, that's draining your budget that might go to other things that could really be needed.
All because they didn't have the foresight from the past.
Well, again, absolutely, totally true.
They couldn't see what was going on.
They couldn't see that they needed to build more housing
before.
Like, how can you have no housing available and call it a housing program? What? That's called a waiting list.
On that topic, did you know that another nation called Hungary, actually donated a lot of small housing units for people that are homeless, and they're really, really small. And these units are right across from King's Cathedral, that area.
Well, that's a story in itself, because again, I have no knowledge specifically, but I understood those were ordered before there was a fire in the West Side, meaning that was already part of the plan by Catholic Charities, who, again, got them from Hungary as a donation. So, once again, those units that are being built, I wondered why they weren't more quickly being built. And I realized because they want them to serve as semi-temporary, but more stable structures. Whereas near the airport where they have those tent city, those are clearly going to be taken down because they're using land that must be more prime, that they need to clean off sooner. That's a tough choice. Imagine you were mayor or governor. You've got to find land to do something temporarily. But like you say, it's like those houses that you were talking about, yeah, we need them, but we need times 10, times 20 from things in the past aren't there. And now with our inflated dollars, we're going to try to solve these problems that we didn't have enough money for, except now it's worse.
Well, the people that still have a title on what is their property or their land, they say, this is our land, our family's lived here for 5 generations. As long as their name is on the title, then they can, I would assume, they would be able to build back on their property.
But not until their property is in no more toxic, and that the areas there are being addressed, again, from scratch in a more responsible way. Some people have said, oh, you see, that proves they wanted to make it a smart city. That means that somebody did this on purpose. Well, that, again, is a lot of conjecture, and I've seen a lot of things that make me realize they had the capacity and capability to destroy that place, that some of the things that we have as weaponry that are housed right here have the capacity to do that. But I try not to get in the middle of those conversations because there's no point. Whatever I would be saying would just be fanning flames
of conspiracy,
having any kind of proof.
No, you don't.
But it is clear that foresight would have helped a lot.
That's all I'm saying is foresight. Look, you gotta see, like when you play a game of chess. A lot of folks play chess. You got to look 3 or 4 moves ahead. You got to know, if I do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, this is going to happen. If they do this, then I'm going to do this, then this is going to happen. You got to be able to think like that if you're going to be in a position of leadership. I don't have all the answers. I mean, I'm just
no, but like we said,
tired person.
Sometimes when you get tired about it, you decide to run.
Right.
And if one of those people or a me gets in that position, once I get there, I might say, well, I had a really good idea, but how am I going to implement that when we have no money and we have all these other needs that I realize they have to be handled also? Wow, I'm more powerless than I thought. I really think
that's no, I think that's pretty accurate, and I didn't want to come across as dismissive. I know that there's a lot of people that really want to make this county better. Some of them don't get elected. Some of the ones that are just out for themselves are only out for themselves. And you can tell by the way they conduct business in the position as a legislator. But no, I'm not gonna go any farther than that. But we've all seen it. We've seen it for years. We've seen this ineptness at handling things, whether it's the emergency sirens going off that didn't, whether it's just turn off the power when your poles go down. If you know there's a hurricane blowing through and it's been a long, hot, dry summer, that doesn't take a lot of common sense. Turn the power off. You're going to have a fire.
Well, again, if you turn the fire off, then the hydrants don't work, and the other utilities don't work unless the system is designed differently. But again, that takes way more foresight than now. When you're in the middle of the problem, maybe you've heard that the utility company said they did turn off the utility. They did turn off the power.
Then why? And then the question comes up, then why were the police having to block the roads because the poles that came down were arcing? They wouldn't be arcing electricity if the power had been turned off. So again, somebody's lying.
Well, no, again, that's a real good question. And because we don't have the answer, some people would say they thought they were arcing, but they weren't arcing. Or there's residual power that stays in certain pieces of equipment even after you turn them off, or something. I mean, there's got to be some reason, because I've heard stories like that also. So that's when it just gets really muddy, and who is responsible should be secondary to what are we going to do now to make it better, and how are we going to deal with things based on our present availability of resources. And by the way, I want you to realize I'm speculating. I don't know what happened, and I'm going to hear over these periods of time many things. And we'll probably hear that Bill Clinton did it, or Biden. I've heard all.
No, it was Oprah bought these satellites and had space lasers come down and fire down on Lahaina because she wants to buy everything. I've heard some crazy just stories that are like, boy, I'd love to buy into that conspiracy theory, but then people will think that I'm nuts. And they already think that, so I don't have to go there. But yeah, it's a weird situation we found ourselves in now.
It is weird. I'm looking at the clock and thinking, before I let the whole show go and not showcase some of you.
Oh yeah,
I wanted to bring up a few clips for people to be listening to, so they can get a feeling for this. I was going to say zany. Is that a better word than crazy?
Much better. Zany.
I remember when, and again, some of you older folks remember the Maui Mystery Theater.
Oh, my company was the Maui Mystery Players.
Maui Mystery Players.
And we did a lot of corporate events and dinner theater, and it became very popular. And I just basically took the stories of the people that have been struggling here, twisted it, put a punchline to it, and told those stories again to corporate America. And got to pay my actors and actresses and myself
a healthy
wage. And it was like, well, wait a minute, I'm playing in this band, playing Louie and My Girl, and I don't mind but I don't want to do other people's covers. I want to do my own original material. That was the satisfaction of doing the Maui Mystery Players for corporate stuff. And it was contributing also to the history of, folks, we're laughing about this, but you guys shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. That was the and it was good. We were able to do comedy, but with a message, and it was very, very positive. Yeah,
Now,
but go ahead.
When I tried to play earlier and I didn't hear the opening credits coming through, I thought to myself, "What am I not hitting?" So this may or may not come through.
Okay, well,
that's what we're going to discuss.
Your headphones work, mine don't. So.
You mean you're not on? I'm just going to check it out right now.
Yeah, this is while you're checking it out, I was also, when I was working as an actor in film, you need to have a voice resume. When you're an actor, you have a reel of things that you've done. And if you're doing voiceovers, then you have to have a voiceover reel. So I was over on Honolulu auditioning for a part, which of course I didn't get. And I had my computer with me, and I just used it on GarageBand. And you know how people talk over each other, in non-polite society. Well, this was just an example of 27 voices I did, and it was kind of humorous. And
let's see if we can get it
see if we can even get it on there. It's called Party in His Pointed Little Head.
Let me hit the button, see what happens. Now, I don't hear it, do you?
I do. I hear it.
I just checked to see. It is not coming through the board.
It's not coming through the board.
I'm going to let it play so that I'm going to replace it when we do the TV part.
Stop playing because you don't have it plugged in. It's not playing because you don't have it plugged in, sir.
Uh-huh.
Little technical things like that. Yeah.
Plug in the dongle.
Live radio.
Okay.
That water was very good, by the way. Vintage water.
This is Tony Midnight. He has a show on 1 o'clock every day, Monday to Friday.
Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday.
Okay, have a play there.
Okay, we're going to try to play it again. Ready?
Do it.
What's going on, everybody? Well, Nancy and I are throwing you a belated birthday party, Elvis. I thought that would be...
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, but I'm dead.
Homer, look at all the celebrities at this party. This is amazing.
Marge, W.C. Fields, and Mae West are walking up to us. What do I do? What do I do?
Ah, yes, my little blue-haired beauty. You and I could make beautiful music together. Lose the fat guy. Oh.
Say, Homer, why don't you come on up and see me sometime when I'm feeling good? I'm good, but when I'm feeling bad.
Madam, you are despicable.
Gotta be despicable sometimes. No, it's not prudent. Always gotta talk about it. That for George, my son, like to call him W. Some of you out there gotta move
Homer,
through.
I just wanted to make this perfectly clear. I've never had sexual relations with your wife, Marge.
And I'm not a crook. Well, let's make that perfectly clear. But we're keeping the dog, and my daughter Tricia is going to name him Checkers. Great balls! Solitude fire! That dog bites me off! Blast her to smithereens, or my name ain't Yosemite Sam!
Excuse me. I mean, hello. I'm looking for this wascally Wabbit may have intruded into your party. He's as a fun...
Please, I'm not that Wabbit. I don't want to die. I'm too young and handsome.
Well, blow me down. Me and Miguel Oliver was invited. And,
Oh, Popeye! You've got to try these spinach cannolis. They're something to die for.
Hi, everybody. Remember me? My name is Jerry Ford. I once was president, too.
Don't worry about it, Doc. It's just that, if you don't mind me saying so, you really didn't count.
Eringo, bruh. Kiss me Lucky Charms that are magically delicious.
Dude, they're like totally bodacious in their deliciousness beyond comprehension. Well, since you ask, Minnie-Me and I are having actually a very good time.
and I just want to clarify
Luke,
that.
I am your father, and with $1 billion, we could rule the universe.
I thought I saw a bureaucrat. I did. I did see a bad old bureaucrat.
All right, boys and girls. Now, let's calm down. Everybody's acting a little bit goofy here.
Well, gee, Mickey, I guess imitation is the highest compliment, isn't that right?
I come in peace. Please take me to your leader and no harm will come to you.
I'll save you, Nell, from the alien.
Now, Dudley, let's see what the little fellow wants first before we react.
Well, up to no good, I'm sure. For my whiplash has gone wimpy, and you can never call me slightly again.
Hey, Mo, not so hard.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but rather what you can do for comedy.
But that's all, folks.
Well, David, I must say, you are a man of many voices. I'm sorry that I didn't have it plugged in right, but now we do. The show is over. Okay, that's great. God, it just shows you have to have eyesight to be able to be a DJ. Anyway, we have about 1 minute and 18 seconds, and I have a couple of more clips. Obviously, you're going to be back because I'm going to be playing them on other shows, and you're going to be playing them also. David Gallagher is going to be my co-host. You'll be seeing him both in the studio and out of the studio, and you'll hear him sometimes replacing me when I'm not here. And you'll get to meet Scott Bushnell, who's another guy out in the field, and they'll both be doing things together and separate. But here I am at the end of yet another show, our first show in 2024. I welcome all of you to our show. With only a few seconds left, we're just going to be saying goodbye.
Aloha.
Well, he meant that. Thank you all for joining us. There it is. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
See ya.